Hi, welcome to Building SaaS with Python and Django. My name is Matt Lehman, and on this stream we work on a Django app, work through some Python code, and I show you how to build an application with my knowledge that I've been using Django for a very long time, and I try and share what I know. So yeah, please join me and let's get into this. So tonight we're going to work on some features that are part of a request from a user that I have. So a small feature, and then we're going to get back into the PDF building that I've been working on. So at any point, if you want to, you can ask me anything about Python, Django, or web development. That's what I'm here for. And this is my first time streaming officially on YouTube. I'm normally over on Twitch, but I post all my content here, and I figured, well, let's see if I can skip that process. So we're going to try this out. Hopefully it'll stick, and I'll just be coming to you live from YouTube each week. Before I get going, though, I do want to thank my patrons that are supporting me. So if you like what you see and you want to join that list of patrons, you're welcome to. But I want to say thank you to Rupert, Andrew, Dragos, a new patron, Ryan, Patrick, Eric, Fred, Philip, Miguel, Shivan, and Monty. I appreciate all you do to help me stay motivated to work on this project. All right, let's get into some code. I had a customer who needs to have a feature, and I guess for context, I'm working on a homeschool application. And so in this homeschool application, the thing that you do is you build schedules, and the schedules will inform what the school, the parents need to work on each week. Am I going to be making a tutorial for beginners? That is not the plan today, Ollie. This is kind of an ongoing project. Hopefully, the goal of this is to show you where my project is on a live app that's been running for quite a while. I do have a full channel of streams that you're welcome to go back and visit. There's a playlist. If you search, well, I guess you're already on my channel, so you found me. I'm trying to get used to not saying, go over to YouTube, because I'm here on YouTube. But there's a playlist called How to Build SaaS with Python and Django, I believe is what I called it. And you can go back to the start of this project. I think it's something like stream number, it's in the 60s range. So you can see this project back from the beginning. Today, this project has been running for well over a year, so there's quite a bit more code here. So we're going to be jumping into some features that are already existing. But do check that out if you're interested. I try and cover a lot of the basics for how to get going. It's not really meant to be a tutorial format insofar as you could follow along and produce exactly what I'm producing. It's more of this is my experience as I'm building this application. So I had a user with the homeschool app, and the request that she wanted was to be able to clear some data out of a field that is not currently possible. So I have a field, and every time a student completes a task in the application, a date gets assigned, and there's a coursework database model that is actually created with that. And currently, there's no way to clear that out. So if someone sets the date by accident, then they don't really have the option to remove it, to undo it, and say, like, oops, I actually didn't mean to make sure that my student was done on such and such a date. So we need to go into the form that is associated with this particular model and make it possible to actually remove the associated record by removing this date. So I'm going to show you where this is at currently, and then we can work from that particular form and see what's going on. And then hopefully, I hope we'll have plenty of time and can get back to the actual PDF project that I've been working on. Last stream, we worked on Tailwind and upgrading Tailwind to make some of this PDF stuff more tenable. So that's kind of where we're at with that. So I'm going to go over to my local host and return to the application. And the challenge is, let's see, where can I find, let's go to this grade level. I think I have some stuff. So you can see that this date is already set on this particular task, which I think is an indicator that, yeah, here we go. So here's this task. Ignore this junk. This was actually a test to prove that some stuff wouldn't break. Actually, it does look like this is causing other problems. That's interesting. I was trying to do a demonstration of that in a different area. Actually, you know what? That's bugging me. Let's just go throw in a couple spaces so to make it so that we'll actually have some breaks along the way and not do weird wrapping like that. So we need to come in here, and this is telling us the fact that there's a date already set here, that this student, Mark, has already completed this task. And this is all test data, which is why it looks like junk here. It's really just a playground that we can have. So we need to be able to come in here, and I want to be able to do this. I want to say delete that, but the problem is that I've made this a required field. And what we need to do is be able to delete this and then have them have the user hit save, and then it will actually clear the date. So that's the idea behind this, and that's the plan. So there's a couple of bits that we're gonna have to do. We're gonna have to remove some of the HTML5 validation that's here. That will actually allow them to remove this, and it's probably going to cause some confusion when they see there's this placeholder text. So I don't know what to do about that. But we're trying to really unlock the capability that the user needs here. So that's the goal. Let's look over at the code and see where this is actually taking place. The first thing to note is that this is in the Students app, and it's for a particular task, and I presume that's the task ID. So there's got to be some URL that we can find in the Students app. So let's go to the Students URLs and take a look at which one it is. So we've got, I believe it's this one. This actually this first one. So in my model, pause here, and let's open up the model diagram. I have ability to generate my models and bring this fully into frame. What we've got here is, there we go. Where are we in this diagram? We're at the bottom. All right, so in this system, there is schools and school years and students and all of this stuff. And the thing that we create, whenever a student completes a task in this system, there's a record that's created that's an association between a task, which is over, you can see over on the right side here, and the student, which is over on the left side. And those things, two things, come together to create this coursework field right here. So this is the model that's powering underneath of whether a chunk of work is done or not. And it tracks, you can see that it's got a foreign key. I don't know how clear that is on the stream, so let's zoom in a little bit more. You can see that it's got a foreign key on the course task, a foreign key on the student, and then an associated completed date. This completed date is not a nullable field. It has to exist. And we can go look at the actual model definition and see what that looks like. Go to the students models. Here's the coursework. You can see there's no null equal true on this field. So we have to have some kind of value there. So when a user wants to actually clear out a date to say, hey, my student has not actually done this, what we have to do in reality is delete the coursework record that's associated with it. And it's going to delete the date and delete those two foreign keys, and that's it. That's all the information that is in this model. So it's fairly harmless outside of that operation. And so we've got this coursework form view, and we have to make some modifications here. Now the challenge, I think, in this process is that we're going to be working with a class-based view, I suspect. I don't think I wrote this by hand. So we have a form to work with, and we're going to have to do some modifications here. Because right now this form is expecting some stuff, and I actually haven't looked at this view in a long time, so we're going to take a moment to study it together to see what's there, and then what we need to modify. So a couple things to note here is that we have the ID here is the student ID. That's the primary key. And then we've got the course task ID is the other thing that goes with it. And I think some of the challenges, you only ever get to this particular view if this record exists. If it doesn't exist, it's going to do, well, what is it going to do? It's going to pull the record, whoops, and grab the first one. And actually, I think we might need to look at this template because there's some other stuff going on. Now that's the course form. So we need the coursework form, right? Students. I'm in the wrong app. Students coursework form. So there are some challenges already associated with this process. Well, are there? I think it's still going to be true that whenever a user comes to this page, there will be a coursework at the time. So the only way to get here is if there's an existing coursework. What we need to do is handle the data on the other side after when they do the actual post of the data. We need to actually determine if we need to delete the task or not, coursework or not. So let's take a peek at what's here and see what we're going to have to change. Also note that I'm using one of these, one of my include templates, and it's using a field. So this is where it also is going to get a little challenging because we need to override some of the behavior here. The form field has a completed date associated with it, which is right, but because it is a required field, this field.html template is actually setting that required attribute. If we look at field.html and we look for required in here, we're going to find it. So it's looking at the field, and currently there's no way to opt out of this. So I need to be able to override this and say, actually, you know what? I explicitly want to have a control that makes it so that a user could submit this even though it's required. That's a little bit of extra complexity here. So we have to modify this field template to allow that as an option, which I don't think is going to be too hard. We can probably say, well, what can we say? Let me think through this for a second. Because I want to continue using this form field. I don't want to have to reinvent that aspect of it. So I think we need an extra Boolean in here that will default to whatever the field required attribute is, and then only override it if something else changes. So the way to do that is going to be with probably some negative logic and leaving off. I got to think through this. We want to say and what do we want to say? So we want two conditions to be true. The two conditions is like the field has to be required and there's no override. So let me just put in the most obvious name to me. This might be the right logic. It's going to be one of these Boolean states. Because what we want to say is, like over here with the autofocus area, we want to say something like override required equal true. Something like that. And what that's going to do, so think about this logically. So even though this field is required, if we pass in this override required, then when it's true, then you're going to have the negation of that, so the not, which will make that false. And since we're doing an and here, it's going to skip the required attribute. And in every other circumstance where this field template is used, override required is not going to be passed in. So it's going to default to a falsy value. It's going to be none. So a is that right? Is that what we want? Well, we'll have to play with it, see if it works out in other scenarios. the simplest way to do that is to fire up the application and just inspect the HTML for this, see if we're getting this change right. Okay, let's refresh this page. Now cancel this. I want the one with the data. So now I've got it so that it should be missing the required attribute because I added override equal true. There it is. That's not cool. So I got something wrong here. Because you can see it's right here, the required attribute. All right, so my logic's wrong. Oh, did I not write this file? Maybe that's why. It seemed pretty right. There it is. Okay, that was right. So the required is now gone. Now, a real test though is that am I messing up all the other places? So if I get rid of this stuff now, will the required come back? That's what's going to be important. The required's back. Okay. So this is the right modification to make sure that this field is no longer required in the template. Now, is that the best name? No, it's not. What can I say? I want this as like, the logic is going to look funky in here, but I want, most of the time I don't have to pay attention to this field template. Kevin, I'm building a homeschool application. So this actually, you can visit it today. It's online. It's the School Desk app. It's something that I built initially for my spouse. We homeschool my 2 kids, and she wanted an application to help manage schedules. So that's what the app is. It is used by a handful of other users, and I'm fixing this feature both for my spouse, who's also reported this issue, but for another customer who reported it this week. And I'm trying to make sure that I make features that should be there, like it was a reasonable request. So what I'm trying to do is like make sure that they can delete this and remove this coursework for their student. So I'm trying to think of the best attribute name that I want in the template as actually the user. So most of the time I want to be able to say what's the interface that I want this to be? Don't require? Is that a good name? It kind of feels gross. Don't require. Yeah. Because we have to put it in the negative in order to get the logic right. So I think this is probably as good as I'm going to get. The problem is, like, you can see in the actual template over here, and not don't require, like that sounds gross, but we've checked it out here, and that, like, now it gives me a nice interface over here. And let's just refresh to make sure that I still got this correct. Okay, the require attribute is missing. Curious what's going to happen if I delete this. It's probably going to give me some kind of integrity error. Oh, it comes back with a validation. Okay, so that was, instead of a client-side validation, it was a server-side validation saying that it failed. So there's some process in the Django form that is actually checking that this is a field that is needed, and we need to basically intercept that process of the form and say, like, it's okay if this is not needed, or if this is not present, go ahead and do a delete if that's the case. All right. We've got the coursework form is probably the other piece that we want to look at here. Let's put, I think this might be the only change that we need for the template, because what's going to happen when the user clears the field and they hit save, it's going to take them back, we want it to take them back to this page. And so the success URL in the form is appropriate, whatever this is. It doesn't really matter. Might not be true anymore if okay. There's complexity upon complexity here. I made this smarter than I realized. But I stand by the statement that the form template is not really changing. That part is basically done. So the behavior is going to be more on the side of what happens when the user hits save, where are they going to go once they clear out this field. So we should be able to ultimately hit this save button, and instead of getting here, it should take them back to whichever page they came from, and then move on. Now, the challenge is we don't want to go to a grade page if they just deleted it, because logically, if the user just unset a date and they're trying to say, you know what, my student actually didn't complete this task yet, then it doesn't make any sense to send them to a page to enter a grade for the task because it's not actually done. So we have to ensure that that this is the URL that is taken, regardless of whether the course task is graded or not. Apologies if that's a little confusing. I realize I'm sort of deep in the modeling of this particular application. So I think what we need to look at next is the coursework form. That's going to be in the students app in the forms area. And yeah, I could set the field in the model as not required, but I actually don't want to. Like I want the integrity to be such that, because this ties really, really closely into all of the scheduling logic, and I know that the presence of a coursework indicates whether something on my weekly schedule for the users displays or not. So if I have something as an unset completed date on there and there's a record just in existence, it's going to screw up with all of the counts in the scheduling logic. So I actually have to delete this coursework instance instead of having this be in the model as null. But I appreciate the suggestion. So what we need to do is come into here, and this is where the clean data, this is it right here. We need to check on the clean data and pull out completed date. And so if completed date is none, we actually want to do something different. Now, it looks like there's actually a bunch of extra work in here, so we have to figure that out too. Again, apologies, like, when's the last time I touched these? So I haven't touched this particular form in over a year. So that's why I'm like a little, if you're wondering, like, man, this guy's slow on the uptake, that's what's going on here. It's just like reminding myself what this code is doing. So we've got this, what is this check? Oh, okay, this is a check to make sure that permission's actually there. It's interesting that that happens later. So I might want to move this up. This is like a guard to make sure that somebody's actually allowed to do this. So this might be better served if it was above this validation check here. I need to think through that. And the check completed date in the school year is not going to matter, really, if we're deleting this thing. Now the question is, this is a standard form view, and we're going to need this to, what's ultimately going to happen? So the way Django form views work, if you're not familiar with them, is you have a form, you go through a cleaning process. That's what this clean method is. It's making sure that all the data is valid. And once the data has been determined to be valid, the form view, class-based view will call on the form itself a method called save, which you can see here. Once the save operation happens, then the form view is going to come back and, assuming everything was valid, call this get success URL place thing here. And that is the path that we still want to follow, but we need to make sure that we can both have a completed date and then not. And what does that mean differently? So we can't just bail out on completed date. That's going to have to change. This isn't really a true statement anymore. I could have had some little bit of unnecessary processing and it would have been fine. That's me ultra optimizing for something that wasn't truly relevant. Okay. I've got tests for this stuff. I don't know how many of these are going to fail. Well, actually, maybe that's a good place to start. So let's try and take out completed date validation here and see if I have a test for that scenario. So PyTest on that particular app. Okay, so this is, got it. All right. So it did fail in a way that I'm not specifically testing for, but it does hit a condition where the completed date is assumed to have a date value, and eventually I'm passing in none. So I don't have any type annotation on here, but it would have failed if I had, MyPy would have caught this if I had type annotated this. We're going to need to have an escape hatch on completed date here if it's none, because we still need to pass through all this stuff. Let me think through this. This is the right check, to have just these two now. What I want this to have happen is let completed date be empty, go through and fail. And then when I get down to the save operation, I'm going to have some conditional logic on the completed date. That's going to be the key thing. And I also need to guard against passing in a non-completed date here. So really what needs to happen is something more like this. If completed date is not none, then we want to call this particular clean method. That'll probably get past that particular test failure that we just saw. Yep. So now we're guarding this. That's good. And then when we get down to the save work, this is where we want to delete an existing coursework. And we'll know that, what will we know? Let me check my assumptions here. Because where else is this coursework form might be used elsewhere. So we need to make sure that that this is going to be okay. Let's see if we can find other instances of this coursework form that I'm not thinking about. And if it's just the one place, then we're in good shape. Looks like it's just that one place. Cool. We don't have to think about other weird conditions. Okay. So now we need the conditional part. Let's pull out cleaned, nope, let's pull out completed date is equal to self clean data get. Now we still, this is the difference. Like, we're not 100% confident that completed date's going to be in here anymore. So now we need to use get instead of just a dictionary lookup. So we've got this completed date, and we know that if it has a value, then we are going to continue to keep and maintain that coursework. So if there's a completed date, then we want to do something. Then we want to do this, what was previously here. And while we're here, we can just change this to completed date, make this a little simpler. And let's run those tests again. I don't think I broke anything, but sanity check. Okay, all still works. So now we're in the else condition. We say, I'm going to leave myself a note. The user removed the completed date so they were trying to clear coursework. Oh, come on. Clear the associated coursework. So if this is the case, we know that we can go to that, we can do a filter on this particular piece of coursework, and we can go ahead and delete it because it means the user didn't actually want it. And we've already done this check in the cleaning part to ensure that this person actually is allowed to delete this task. So it's the right, I think we're pretty safe there. So we want to do coursework objects filter with the student and course task like this, and then call delete on that query set. I don't know that. Nope. Okay. So I think that's going to be right. I'm going to test this quickly in the actual app itself. I know that this area is now uncovered, and then my test suite depends on having 100% test coverage. So we're going to need a unit test to prove this, but I want to see it. I can probably quickly confirm or if it's working or not. And so let's back out of here, cancel this, and let's come into this thing. And we want to, what I expect to have happen, if I delete this, and then I go to save, and it should take me back to the course detail page, and then give me more options to like set the date. Oh, interesting. It said it's required. 0x Vivek, hello, welcome. We're working through some changes and working through a form view and trying to make some workflow work for my users, but fighting with some of the class-based forms here. It's one of those interesting scenarios where if I probably could do it again, I might use a regular form view or a regular view and just use the form myself instead of relying on class-based views. I'm not really good question. I'm trying out YouTube. Yep. So I'm normally over on Twitch, but I'm trying out YouTube today, and I'm hoping to like simplify my workflow, because previously I would work on Twitch and then I would export it and then I'd go do a bunch of stuff. Anyway. Oh, okay. John, that's a good call. That's probably, you might be right there. What is it? This is a Yeah, good observation. This is a model form, so it's doing whatever's on this. When does blank equal true come into play? I thought it was just on like CC admin, the Django admin stuff. Is it also on model form validation? Django blank true. Because it's going to be kind of a weird thing to be able to have like a completed date with blank equal true, but it won't have null equal true. So that it's bypassing some stuff there. Well, this is not where I want to be. I want to be on the actual Django docs. Oh, come on now. I switched to DuckDuckGo for reasons, but I'm not. Clearly, it's not always the best for everything. I would expect this to take me right to Django documentation. Let's look at blank. Is allowed to be blank. Blank is validation related. That's probably what you're talking about there, John. Form validation. All right. Is there a way? It seems silly to have a migration for this to just to enable this. Is there a way to do that on an individual form? Can I tell a model form, hey, actually I want this particular one to be blank? So we're working with a model form, because otherwise it's going to be kind of confusing, I think. Blank. It's the form factory. It's right here. Blank. Yeah, I'm thinking something like that too. Maybe a meta. There's a model example. I bet there's a way, but it's okay. It's not like the end of the world if I have to, because it's not like a migration that's going to affect the database really, and I can document why it is there. So let's go over to the students models, and we'll allow blank to delete coursework via an empty completed date in the form. I'll buy that. Appreciate you pointing that out. I was not thinking about the model doing that, but would have gotten there eventually, but it's nice to have some help. All right, so in theory, now that that's true, this reloaded. This isn't, again, this is not a model change that requires an actual database change. There will be a generated migration from it, but this is just for validation. So we should be able to come back to this, and I should be able to clean this out. And with any luck, now it will go to the course detail page rather than kicking me back. Yep, and the set date thing is cleared, which is an indicator to me that the actual coursework was deleted. So that's the right change. Yeah, I don't have any other migrations coming up, so I don't mind making little migrations. And I have actually, my test suite will fail to run if I have one of the PyTest flags on, where if there are any missing migrations, it will complain. Not when I'm running locally, but when I'm running in CI. So if I go to my test suite here and Well, it's not there, so it's actually my PyTest INI, I think. Yeah, so you can see I have the no migrations on as my normal setting for when I'm running PyTest to make it so that I don't have to wait for migrations while I'm running my tests, because those start to slow me down. But when I'm running CI, I can run. Oh, is RipGrep's not gonna like this. Oh, come on. Somewhere, I think it might be in my make file. I run it with migration specifically. So CI would fail if I was missing a migration. Just kind of a way to keep me honest, so that I don't. It's just me deploying this application, so I would have problems if I forgot migrations, and I don't want to create those kind of problems. But good call on the blanket goes through those. I appreciate that. So I think we need a new test to kind of prove that the coursework is actually deleted. So I think I want to do that as a form test. There's no reason to test this all the way through on the view code. That's kind of a waste of time. So let's go to the students app and go to the test forms. And I'm sure one of these has save. There's a save new and save existing. So we want to probably copy from the save existing and then check that the coursework goes to 0. Let's take this test. These are some old tests. Probably better ways to do this that I've learned over time, but I'm not going to think too hard about it. Trying to get down to the actual real forward progress on feature work, but I thought this was going to be a quick one, but I'm surprised at how involved making some of these form modifications are. So test save deletes coursework, and we'll say a blank completed date deletes an existing coursework. So we should be able to just change that to 0. And then I think just remove that line. That work? Cool. That was right. All right. So let's run all the test suite. Whoops. To make sure that I actually got the coverage up. And then we need to add that migration and commit this. And I can show you actually, it'd be a good time to show how do you know that the migration is safe, or how can you inspect it? I'll take a minute to poke at migrations and learn a little something there. All right, we maintain 100% coverage, and we'll run manage make migrations, which is going to should make one migration in the students app. Alter coursework completed date, that's right. And I don't technically need to do this part. Oh, Black already ran that. Or, cool. Black had nothing to run there. Surprising. Usually Black has some kind of issue with the generated files. And so the next thing you can do that I actually really like about Django is there's a command called SQL migrate. And SQL migrate will show you what is the actual database statements that should be executed on a migration. So if we look at the students 6 migration, I'm still getting used to a new keyboard, apologies y'all. We'll see that there's nothing here. So I'm using SQLite locally, which is different from my Postgres database, but it does prove that, look, there's a start of a transaction, And then these are comments that are output by Django. The dash dash is like comments in the SQL syntax here, or SQLite. And then there's a commit. So there's no change. Had we had an actual new addition of a field, there'd be some kind of database. It's called DDL, database description language, I think is what it stands for. Anytime you like make modifications to your schemas and stuff, there'd be extra statements in here that would be in those migrations. So this is a good way that you can get the confidence that what you're doing, if you do expect it to modify your database, you would see stuff there. But in this case, I definitely expected it not to touch my database, and this is confirmation that was the case. So reviewing this, we fixed the validation to allow completed date to go through as none, and then it falls through the bottom, and then when it finally comes to save, it will do this extra bit of work to delete this. I notice now in this process, as I'm sitting here right now thinking through what's left, there is one thing that I said we could possibly work on, but maybe I'll just not. It's probably okay. So in that coursework view, going back to the view file, there's the success URL. And the success URL is going to take you somewhere else if the task is graded. So, okay, maybe I should do this because it's going to be kind of confusing for a user. This is maybe like where the polish would be beneficial. So the truth is, I'd only want to go to the grade page if there was a completed date. So can we do that quickly? Does the form view have form attribute? There's a get form. Wondering if I can get the form and then check on the cleaned data. Feels kind of gross, but might be okay. Yeah. Probably worth it. Question though is like, if I call get form view, is it creating a new one, a new form that's not bound, or is it going to be the same form that's along with the class? This is where class-based views, like if I just made the form in a regular view, this would have been a lot clearer. So let's go to the actual Django source code and let's look at the get form method. Yeah, it's creating a new form class. No, that would actually be really bad because if I tried to call get form and then I tried to get the clean data off of it, it wouldn't have gone through validation yet. So it would actually blow up and say like, there's no clean data. So that's not what I want. The question is though, is there a form attribute that's just attached to the class by the time that get success URL is called? And there may be, but I'm not positive. So we've got the form is added to the context. So there's going to be a context that I could potentially access. Where's context data called? Okay. It's not worth it. If the user comes back and says that that's bugging her, then I'll come back and do that. But just Just don't think it's worth it. Okay, let's commit this stuff and move on. So delete coursework when completed date is none. And this fixes, what issue number was that? 562. Cool. I'll push that up while I'm sitting here. All right, so let's switch gears. Let's work on PDF stuff. I was working on PDF stuff 2 or 3 streams ago, and I have a meetup, so that might have been a month ago at this point. But I've got a local branch here as the resource report PDF branch, and I want to merge in main. Part of the reason I took a detour from this PDF work is you can see I've got this Tailwind v3 upgrade here. And Tailwind is the CSS library that I use. And I wanted to be able to use my CSS file potentially in the PDFs that I'm generating. So I'm using WheezyPrint. WheezyPrint is a package that will generate PDFs based off some HTML combined with some CSS. And so it'd be nice if I could use the same Tailwind. So let's merge that stuff in. So that should include all of the Tailwind changes. And the reason I didn't continue on the PDF path is because the Tailwind file that I had for development was gigantic. The V2 version, I worked with a huge CSS file that had all the CSS classes in it. And I had a feeling that WheezyPrint was just going to explode with CSS files that were like multiple megabytes. And it just seemed better to go ahead and upgrade to version 3, because now when I look at my static files, where's my site? Yeah. So this is actually, what's the size of this? Nope. So 36K. That's a lot more manageable than the 4 megabytes or 5 megabytes of CSS that it was previously. So we can get back to this report project. Did I leave any to-dos in here for myself? Oh man. Okay. I've got this PDFs file. I think where we were. Right. It's coming back to me now. I was making a page. I made like an admin page that I could use. Let's start this up. All right, so this is where I was generating PDFs. So I need a particular ID. I don't even remember what ID I was using. Nope, I don't have any of my history either. The resource report admin page. Resource report. I need an enrollment ID. Okay. So we'll use the same one that's over here to kind of match it up. So this is the resource, this is the web version of the report. And what are these reports? I guess as a reminder, if you've never joined me on the stream before, the goal of these PDFs is when a user gets to the end of the year and they need to be able to I could. When the user gets to the end of the year and they want to generate the records of, like, this is everything that happened in the year. My goal right now is to make a bundle that is a zip archive that will include PDF versions of all of the reports that they need. And they need this for a variety of reasons. Primarily, at least in the case of my family, is we have to prove to the local government, I'm here in Frederick, Maryland, that we're actually educating our students, my kids, properly, and following a curriculum and things that can be reviewed and such. So currently, my wife is able to do that proof, but she has to come in through each of these web page reports and like print this page, and it's sort of tedious for her. So the feature that I want to make available to both her and any other user is like, okay, you're done with the school year. Here's a bundle. Here's everything that your kids did this year, and that you could just kind of hand off, with any luck, hand off to local government to kind of prove this is what they did. So I'm trying to recreate this particular report. This is the first one in a PDF format. And the point of this dashboard page was to like be super low tech. There's no validation here. It's not even a post. It's actually a GET request, so that I can just keep calling this over and over again, and it'll generate a PDF, and we can look at it and see how it comes out. So this is the raw version of the report. Hopefully you can kind of see that it's the same data. We got the data right for the resource report, and now it's time to style it such that it actually kind of doesn't need to mirror this, but it should not look like garbage like it currently looks like. That's the goal. And we have not done any work to actually do that styling. I'm not a pro with WheezyPrint here. So this is, as you're watching me, we're learning this together. I knew enough I read enough of the documentation to get this far, but the actual content that we're going to put in there is work that remains to be done. And I don't necessarily know what I'm doing, just to be fully transparent. So you can see the way that this works is I added a function that will actually, given a set of context data, which is strongly typed data that then can be used. It's a data class that gets passed in through asdict, then gets sent to this render method. It was so that I could use the same context data for both the web view. So exactly the same set of data is going into this page, and that goes into the PDF report. It's going to help ensure that in the future, if I need to make any modifications, that I'll have the context available in both places, and that I can know that my PDF generation function is working from the same kind of data set that the web is working from. So I did that with some clever data class stuff that was suggested by somebody in the stream. So we pass that on to render to string, which renders that content here, and then the rendered version is what goes into the HTML version from WheezyPrint. We use the bytes.io package, or the bytes.io, from the standard library, and write the content, the PDF data, to that bytes.io object. And then we can do io.getValue to actually get that finalized binary data, which is what we are going to ultimately stream back to the users. In the version that we're going to use in this website, we return to how this is supposed to look, is their flow is going to look like this. They'll click on this link, they'll take them to this page, they'll click on the create bundle, and they'll get a whole zip archive. And I've already built out that zip archive, and now we're just populating it with data. So that's how that overall flow is going. But the job of this PDF function is solely based on like make the PDF, and everything that needs to stitch it together is going to be done elsewhere. And so that's gets us back to where we were with all this stuff. And then you can see how this testing view just kind of streams that PDF data to this resource report PDF that we were just looking at. So I think what we need to do to actually advance on this is now go into this resource report PDF HTML template and start styling it. Add in some CSS classes. Actually, that might be a good first step of what we haven't done with WheezyPrint right now is point the particular CSS that we want to use. And so maybe now that Tailwind is upgraded, maybe the first thing we try is just pass in the Tailwind CSS file and see how it does. See if it's makes WheezyPrint explode, makes WheezyPrint mad, makes WheezyPrint look awesome. I don't know. The less work I can do on this project, the better, because who wants to maintain a bunch of stuff? So let's go to the WheezyPrint documentation, because I need a reminder of which API. WheezyPrint? Yep. There it is. One of these. Doesn't even need to be like a complicated version of this. Okay, so you can see the way this works out. You build a CSS object from a string. I bet there's a way to pass in a file name too. I don't think I'm going to do that. I'll probably just get the string. Although I say that, and I'm not sure. I'm not confident of that part. We're going to use standard fonts. I'm not going to do any stuff that's outside of the standards. Like my website, I don't mess with any custom fonts. I just try and use the stock stuff that's available from the browser, because it's not that important to me to make this look like something amazing. It's really the value for my users is that the scheduling works right. And so as long as it looks good enough, that's what's important. So I'm going for functional here too, and low maintenance. So what we are going to do is we're going to create a CSS object. We're not going to worry about the font config aspect of this, because I don't think I need it. And then we will pass in style sheets in the same way here. And so the question becomes, that CSS class, what can it take? It takes a string, clearly. Let's go to the Python API and look for CSS. CSS object. With the same arguments as HTML. What were the arguments for HTML? So I can either pass in a string, like the HTML version does. I don't want to pass in a URL because I'm not interested in like having it fetch. That's not really what I'm after. Any object with a read method or the file name. Okay. So how are we going to do this? Let's look at the base template. One of the cool things that we can do with Django is this method of invoking the static site CSS can be done inside of Django code, inside of any function. And I guess in this case, what's that going to resolve to? So that's going to resolve to a URL path. I'm not sure that's what I want, though. I really want the content out of it. So we want to be able to open up the CSS file and get the content, which is a kind of a different operation than the way that I've typically have used this call in the past. But if we look at the Django source, there it is. And dig into contrib. Nope, we're static. I think it's core. Is that right? No. All right, my memory's failing me. Template tags. Okay. We open up static here. This is the kind of area we want to import from. There is somewhere static. Now, I need to figure out how to actually read this data. This is something I hadn't really thought through. And why do we need to do this? I guess maybe I'll back up there. When my live site is deployed, every static file, every attribute is passed through its hash is calculated, and there is a new name generated for the file. And so when you do a lookup like here, it's, even though it just looked like site.css in my case, it's really going to be site.somehashvalue.css, and that's a unique fingerprint that helps enable the caching mechanisms of my website to deliver the minimal amount of stuff out to the web. So when users make a request, they request that version, and so there's like this lookup table called a manifest. I'm using the manifest fingerprinted version of static files, and it will look up site CSS and will find the hashed value. So I have to pass it through this scheme to get the actual name out. Now when I'm doing this locally, I'm going to pass in site CSS, and it's probably going to hand me back site CSS is the same name. But what I need to be able to do is open that file and read out the content. So I think where I'm going to go with this is, let's try this. From Django template tags, import static. Okay, now in here we need to do what? We need the site CSS. It's like we're gonna get the path for this, the absolute path that we're after, and that's going to be a call to static with site CSS as the name, just like in my base template over here, no different. So this will give us a new path. Now the difference is we need to then find the actual file on disk, and this is maybe less obvious to do, but we should be able to go to our settings and look for the static root. So this is static root is where after all of the static file collection is done, all of the files will be dumped into wherever static root is. So we should be able to do a join on static root plus site CSS and get a path object. So let's do that. Let's do from Django conf import settings, and then we want to have the site CSS path is equal to settings.static root, and it's a path object, pathlib object, so we can use the slash, and then we can say, should be able to say site CSS. So now we have the site CSS path, and there's multiple ways we can handle this now. So now over in the WheezyPrint stuff, it said it can take a file name or pathlib, and maybe that's what we want to do. Let's just pass it that. That makes sense. We don't need to pass in the file object. We don't need to open it. So WheezyPrint can do that for us, I think is what I'm getting at. So we need to add CSS to this, and then say what? Then we need to say it was style sheets, right? It needs to be equal to a list with the CSS object, and we want to give it the path that we have here. And then close the list. I think that's it. Still need the tests. Move that comment up. So just doing that much, I think, should change the look and feel of what we see. We've got the resource report here. I'm hoping that clicking the button again, I'm hoping we did everything right, first of all, and that clicking the button again and generating a new report will change some aspect of this. Probably the font, I would guess, because there's Tailwind does some kind of reset stuff in the browser, and so it might take off. Well, we'll just see. Let's try it out and see what happens. Whoops. Oh, shoot. Module object is not callable. Static. Oops. Is it one more level? Ah, it's one more level. It's a static function inside the static module. Okay. So we need, if we just add template tags, static. There we go. That should be what we're after. Okay. Let's try again. Ah, phooey. Oh, I didn't see that coming. Bummer. That's giving me the full path. But it's tacking on static URL. So it's kind of, it's close, but not quite right. And again, remember I said that, like, if we're running in the live site with the real thing, this is not going to be just site CSS. It's going to be site dot some long string of stuff, random hashcode.css. So we do need to use this static function, but what we're going to have to do probably, I think the easiest thing to do might be is just replace static root with an empty string. This is going to look pretty gnarly, but I think it'll be okay. So let's do replace the settings static root with an empty string. Nope, don't. Try again. Oh, come on. All right, replace needs to be a string. So this was a static root is, oh, that's what, okay. Not static root, static URL. We want to get the stuff off the front. Ah, shoot. Okay, there's a reason why this isn't working. It's because I haven't generated the static files here. So I could do this, but maybe I'm barking up the wrong tree. So if I were to run what? If I were to run collect static, then what that's going to do is generate the static files directory. And that's okay. So there's all those files. Actually, here's a good example. Here's the example of what this will look like. It's going to be the thing with the hash .css. That's what Django is really going to look up in the manifest version. It's not the version that gets used locally in development, but that's what will happen. Now, I don't want to have to run this stuff with static files, ideally. I want to be able to have it do the right lookup. And I believe there's a way to look this up properly with a file path without cobbling this all together. I gotta believe that there's a way to do this better. Let me check something else. No, there's the debug toolbar. Okay. Let's poke around a little bit more, shall we? So we're in the template tags area, which might not be the best place to be. Because we really need stuff from static files. And where's the static node? Line 95. Here, maybe this is it. Static files storage. Maybe I'm calling the wrong thing. Because I've been thinking about this, using this template tag as like it's generating the URL, but maybe the better way to do this is from the static file storage, and there's probably an API that allows me to look up the file name. So let's go there. I don't remember what the API is on that. I don't want a URL. I want the file path. Problem is, there it is. Okay. Path. Name. All right, let's try this instead. I might have been sending you all down the wrong way. It is sometimes useful to get the URL of a static file, but this might not be that time or place. And by going directly to the static file storage, we might be able to bypass like all of this stuff. It started to feel gross when I was doing this replace. Like there are APIs for this kind of thing. So we want, where is this? I do have my static files dirs set correctly. Good question, John. So this is from Django contrib static files storage import static, what was it at the bottom? We want to get the static files storage. Okay. Now, let's try and call let's just rename this, see if this will work. Static files storage path with site CSS. See if that works right. And then I'll clean up in a minute if I'm off there. Now I want to remove this static file stuff because I have noticed it makes my local dev server run slower or something. Okay. With any luck, with the right name. Oh, son of a gun. It's still... all right, all right. It's still trying to resolve to that static files location. That's just not right. Like, there are ways... Okay. I'm going to confirm what John was just asking about. Thought I said it. Maybe I didn't. There is the static files. Yeah, here it is right here. DIRs. So when I'm running what am I trying to do here? I've got the storage set up to be the compressed manifest static file storage. That's what's running normally, even in my like dev mode here. It only changes when I'm running tests. And so I guess it's that storage mechanism that is actually like complaining in this case. What's weird to me is that when the URLs resolve, when I'm actually running the web server, it's looking in the proper locations. It's not actually looking in static files. John, I'm looking at your comment here. Because I know this configuration has been right for a long time for like doing local web development. So it's able to serve this stuff. Like I believe I have debug mode on. And when debug mode is on, then compressed manifest file storage does serve directly out of the static files. Whoops. Out of the static files DIRs. So I would think that when I'm asking the storage path, hey, what is the path here, it would give me the same resolution as what happens when the actual URL is invoked. That's clearly not what's happening. I mean, I could try. Okay. Maybe for the point of this stream tonight, like, I'm going to try and just do the collect static route like we just did and see if I can get something. I'm really just interested is like, is the CSS stuff working at all? And if that means that I'm limited on when I can run these particular functions, that's going to be a total pain in the rear because of other issues. But I just want to see something working. That's all I'm interested in at this point. Unexpected keyword argument style sheets. Oh, that was on the right PDF, wasn't it? We're getting closer. So it got past the actual CSS needs. I think I put it on the wrong place. I think I need, I think it needs to go on right PDF. Is that what the example showed? Yeah, it was on right PDF. Put it in the wrong place. Okay. So let's delete all of that and put it here. So still, the HTML is the HTML, and then the style sheets come into play when you want to write the PDF. It's taking longer, which means it's perhaps grinding through that CSS. I don't know. Ooh, look at that. It did some weird stuff, but is that closer or farther? What the heck? Why is the 3 gone? What's going on there? That's super weird. Well, Tailwind is not like that important to me, and if it screws this up, I'm not afraid to dump it for a really simple CSS of my own construction. That would be totally fine with me, in fact. That's a bummer. I would think, okay, what happened? Because let's compare. It's the numbers. Why are the numbers dropping out? That's so weird. Science 3, all the numbers are gone. What? Okay. Well, I think this might merit me building my own little bit of CSS here, knowing that WheezyPrint, and they're very clear about this in the docs. They don't hide it. That WheezyPrint is not. It's not Chrome. It's not running WebKit or I'm drawing a blank on the name of the Chrome rendering engine, but it's not the core rendering engine. It's something else, and they are building their own stuff on top of Pango and other bits and bobs here that are different tools. So I think what I want to do is maybe not fret too much about making this work with Tailwind, and really get back to what is the real problem that I'm trying to solve. And that problem is I need my PDFs to look okay. They don't need to look fantastic. They're needed for record keeping purposes. Yeah, it'd be nice if I could spruce them up a little bit, but they need to be functional. And so maybe that's where we will return to this next time. We've been going for quite a while. Yeah, those are good tools too. I still like WheezyPrint and the simplicity of having a template generated mode of doing this. So I'm not giving up on WheezyPrint on that aspect, but I think I'm going to rework the CSS that I pass to it and go for something that's a little bit more hand-rolled and a much smaller set of rules, and strip out all the stuff, because I don't actually know what is in the 36 kilobytes of Tailwind data that is preventing WheezyPrint from showing numbers. And I don't feel like trying to strip that down to something that will actually display properly. That's not really an effective use of my time. So I think what I'll do is I'm going to call it a night there, and we'll return to this problem with some fresh eyes, and maybe I'll have some chance to poke around and see what the heck was going on with some of those static file paths, because we still may want to have a CSS file, just not be the same one that the rest of the website is using, but put it in the static files area so that I can reference it easily. Thank you all for joining in for this stream. Once this goes down off of YouTube, this is new territory for me. Once I'm stopped here, I'll probably have to clean up the stream a little bit, and I will repost it, so it'll be unlisted for a while. But you can check out previous streams that are available. And yeah, thanks for joining in. You can like, subscribe. I don't have to say follow anymore. Just like and subscribe. That would be really cool. And appreciate the comments. John, thanks for your help this evening. I appreciate that. And I hope you all have a good rest of your evening. Take care.